We're going to start with something nice and light. How do you move from being a CIO to becoming a CEO? We are going to look at CIO career journeys. We are going to look at expertise and experience and how you essentially balance that experience that you've built up across 20 plus years with actually what the business requires, because obviously there are two different things there. How would you describe your route to becoming a CIO in the first place? And was it a kind of a North Star thing, you always knew that was the direction of travel you wanted to go? Or was it more a case of incremental improvements and the journey shaped you where you were going, essentially? Abhy, I'll start with you.
For me, it wasn't an ambition that I wanted to be the president for Asia Pac, running, looking at growth for our brands in the region, looking at sourcing, supply chain, and all the other things that come into the bucket of COO. None of that was my ambition. But what was my ambition was I really believed in what we did as a business, as in the business outcome was the key thing that drew me, the actual product we sold to the consumer and the actual impact. As in, I was sitting, when Emma came out, I said, I'm gutted that we didn't sponsor you. As in, we have a cycling brand. So that's the passion that I've got, is the passion for what we actually do and the impact to the consumer, the actual outcome, and really taking some skills like navigation, influencing, and change maker was how I saw myself in each of these roles, rather than see myself as a CIO or a CDO or a president or COO. So that's probably my journey.
Phil Jordan, former CIO at Sainsbury's, said, it will happen, it's just a matter of time. And actually, if anyone's best placed to demystify technology's role within an organization, it is the CIO or equivalent. So what's your view on this topic?
Now we aren't IT people anymore. Now we are digital people. You are looking at a cohort of people of this generation, dare I say that at 50, our generation close to mine, that have only ever done transformation. They've only ever been involved in change. They've not done just tin and wires. This is about changing organizations. And in 2023, I think most chief execs of big organizations are trying to constantly change their organization. And therefore, maybe the most credible and experienced person in the room to create transformation is the CIO, is the digital people that are there. So why do we need transformation people? Why do we need a change portfolio board of dozens of people to manage change? Everything that we're trying to do at DWP about change pretty much winds back to a foundation of digital stuff. So I think we need to get to a place where we celebrate the experiences and skills that digital people have got when it relates not to technology, but to actual transformation that happens across what we do.
Sorry, just a quick point to add. I think that has shifted and changed as well, in way of CIOs, adding value to the bottom line. Because, I was CIO 10 years ago now, but in way of that role at that point, it was always cost center rather than profit center. And I think that nuance and that shift has allowed for a really transparent conversation about moving the business forward from a transformation perspective. And I think that nuance really helps make that move.
If I spoke to the majority of group CEOs and, I don't know, the FTSE 100 and said, do you think your CIO or whatever you want to call that, Apex, is your next successor, I would imagine very much less than 1% would say, oh, actually, yes, you're spot on.
Still not recognised.
So why is that the case? Why is there this sort of almost, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, between perception of technology leaders by the business and technology leaders' perception of themselves?
Can I just follow up? That word perception is really important, isn't it? Because I think we're talking about perception of IT and what it does for the organisation, but actually you almost need to shift the perception of what an IT leader can and should do, and actually who can be a technology leader in the first place. Rachel, what's your thoughts on that? What can you do? I guess some of that's volunteering, putting your hand up, doing stuff outside work. How do you see that?
Well, I think it is, but also, the role has changed a lot in the last 10 years. The kind of, the CIO role, going back 10 years when I was doing it, we were dealing with, on-prem data centers that, over 25 degrees fell over and wouldn't operate, and various other stories. But that market and that world has moved along a lot. And we were talking about this in the kind of prep for this discussion. How that's moved. There are different challenges today. The advent of digital and IT is now very much sitting in the in the remit of the CIO in many places. But I think. I think really looking at the opportunity there is key, and the bit that we debated was around things like shadow IT previously, and the reality is you're always going to have some of that's happening. But in my opinion, that comes from not creating the value in the first place. So I think that role has evolved. I think it's distinctly different, and I think it's well placed to in agreement to pick up various other C-suite positions.
As you evolve into new roles, you leave behind what got you there in the first place in many ways. And I've heard different perspectives on this. Some people saying, for example, there's a CDIO in healthcare who went into an interim CEO role. And he said he's got very early in his career, but he moved out of coding, and that's what he loved doing. He went to leadership, and there's a remorse or a loss there. But actually, as he went into the more senior business roles, there was a new intellectual stimulation that he never thought of before. So how do you balance that, what you love and what you've grown up with or what you've developed with actually what that business needs from you?
So I think the first thing, I had to leave behind a few things. One is just leaving behind the discomfort of not knowing everything. I think that's probably the biggest thing, shift that I had to make in terms of saying I wouldn't know everything and I don't need to know everything, and just being comfortable with that. And then the second one was probably doing more of what you did in IT, which is hiring people much better than you in jobs, in the roles that you're going to do, making sure that you've got clear people who can actually take on your job tomorrow if you win a lottery. So that's probably the second thing. But the things that you learn and influence is actually building on what you have already learned, navigating complexity of the organization, influencing the organization, galvanizing people to actually make change and transform the business, moving things at pace, iteratively adding value into the organization, taking all your commercial and negotiation skills into bigger negotiations. Whether it's, I would say there's so many things you can take on, but there's the biggest thing to leave behind is not knowing everything you probably know in that role.
And then finally, very quick and concise, I'm going to ask each of you one thing you should do, one thing you shouldn't do if we aspire to move from the realms of CIO to CEO. And I guess, Rachel, you were first, you were on my eyesight. So what's your one thing you should do, one thing you shouldn't?
So one thing you should do is get yourself out there and be upfront about it, in my opinion, and be really intentional that is the direction of travel. Don't be shy. I was always clear that for me that move was CIO to CEO, and however that happened, it was going to happen. And I guess the one thing you shouldn't do, that's slightly trickier.
Stop calling it IT.
Definitely stop calling it IT.
Okay, I'm claiming that one as well. I think I'm stealing Rachel's, but being intentional and being open and asking, what do I need if I want to achieve this? I don't know how many CIOs are open around their ambitions beyond. I mean, we're seeing a lot of them moving into chief operating officers and chief transformation officers, etc. But beyond that, I think ask for help and support.
Abby, over to you.
Talk about the consumer and the end impact more and more, and that drives growth, that drives everything. So your language, change the language, and believe in yourself. And I keep telling my personal example, I'm an introvert, and for my IT, I'll still use the word IT, but I'm still doing a job that is completely not related. So belief is quite an important thing, and stop doing is, let's stop talking about the tech we're in that enables things. Let's talk about what we're enabling. So let's stop talking about the tech that enables it.
So I think we've said it a lot, but be part of your business. Understand your business, know where it is and know where it's going, and help be part of where it's going. And when it is the board meeting and the chief exec's PowerPoint doesn't work, maybe don't crawl under the desk and try and help fix it for him.
Fantastic. Wonderful panel. Please put your hands together for the panelists.